prices are rising faster than incomes. For millions of Nigerians, the cost of a simple meal now tells a deeper story of inflation, fragile supply chains, climate pressure, and policy choices. This is not just an economic challenge. It is a test of resilience, governance, and national priorities. On this episode of NESG TV, we unpack what's driving Nigeria's food price shock, who is most affected, and most importantly, what a realistic survival plan looks like for households, businesses, and government. The question is no longer whether action is needed, but how fast and how well Nigeria can respond. Hello, welcome back to the NESG TV. It's 2026, so Happy New Year to each and every one of you, our viewers. It's good to have you back, and we hope that 2026 becomes a very productive year for you and yours. Today we are looking at the topic, the food price shock and Nigeria's survival plan. Food prices continue to rise across Nigeria, placing increasing pressure on households, livelihoods, and national stability. To help us unpack what's driving this crisis and what Nigeria can do to survive and recover, we are joined today by Mr. Aziz Salahu, the thematic lead for the food systems under the Community of Practice for Youth at the NESG. Mr. Salahu works at the intersection of food systems, youth engagement, and policy reform, with a strong focus on building resilience and sustainability in Nigeria's agricultural sector. It's a pleasure to have you on the TV with us today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
So let's just jump right into it. Nigeria has experienced over the years repeated food price spike. From your perspective, what structural and immediate factors are converging to drive this current shock?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think for me, the price shock has been consistent, and of course, the major driver of this are usually, the internal arrangements, for the country, especially for the fact that Nigeria is an import-induced country. A lot of the things we actually consume in Nigeria are imported into Nigeria, and with that, we cannot there's no way we can actually shy away or do without some of these shocks that are actually affecting us. And in past decade, Nigeria has actually and other part of the world has actually faced three critical food shocks. The first one was during COVID-19. The second one was during the Russia-Ukraine war, and the third one was when subsidy was actually removed. Apart from these, there are some of other factors leading to some of these price shocks. We talk about climate change, the effect of climate change. Up to today, it's some people still believe that there is nothing like climate change, but then it has adversely affected especially producing communities. There are communities or states where we know as Nigerian Food Bank. Some of these states are now being affected by insecurity challenges, farmer elder crisis, and directly or indirectly, this is actually affecting food price. Also, when we talk about post-harvest loss, is also a major factor driving some of these challenges around the food shocks. Post-harvest loss, 40 to 60% of the produce or harvested produce from the farm goes to waste. So how are we able to, maximize or find solution to all of this? So these are some of the factors, that are actually, bringing together some of the things we actually called food shock in Nigeria. And when we also look at, the macroeconomics, part of it, it's very important for us to really understand that agricultural food systems need to be, addressed as a macroeconomic issue. The earlier we start understanding some of these things, the better for us. It was well highlighted during the 2026 NESG macroeconomics report launch, where manufacturing and agriculture is actually two of the top leading, macroeconomic issues that need to be critically looked into for us to really move forward. And of course, it's not something that would be done by maybe the government alone. It has to be a shared and collective responsibility.
By the way, if you've not downloaded our NESG Macro Outlook for 2026, the link will be pasted below. Please visit and then get insight that will prepare you for the year. Thank you for sharing those factors that are contributing to the food price shock. And you mentioned the subsidy removal. I know some people really complain because this affected them in terms of food. When food prices rise at this scale, the impact goes beyond household budgets.
Absolutely.
How are this shock reshaping especially youth livelihoods, social stability and trust in economic system? And what risks do this pose if left unaddressed?
Well, I think I would like to, go first into the risk, because these are part of the things that we actually take with levity. So a lot of things are actually happening. A lot of focus has actually, been on production, but then it is really beyond production now. Now we are looking, at some of the solutions using the food systems approach or using the food systems lens. It's very important for us to understand that this risk, when they are being left, untouched, would really affect us directly or indirectly. Of course, it can, probably affect us, we maybe in the food systems sector directly, talking about farmers, talking about producers, processors, and also, industry giants, both, at the private level and also at the, subsistence and also small scale level. But then, it also affects every other person, because we actually cannot do without food. Food is culture. It's actually what brings every one of us together, whether you're planting, whether you're farming, whether you're doing all of these things or you're not doing it, you have to eat. It's very important for us to see it as a collective effort. We need to be our brother's keepers. We need to understand that, this risk are actually there. And if we don't do anything around it, and when I talk about we doing something around it, it has to do with everybody working together, playing their part, playing their role to make sure that some of these risks are actually, brought down. And for young people's livelihood, it's really evident. A lot of young people are now, moving from the rural, community to the urban community, because of course we call it migration. This is beyond Japa syndrome that we actually are familiar with. A lot of them now move from their communities, their rural communities, where they produce, where they do some of their cultural practices, where they support the system. When I talk about the system now, the local system of making sure that food are being produced year in, year out, with a lot of them are actually not willing to do some of these things, but then displacements occurred. When it comes to issues around the insecurities, they have to move from the rural communities to the urban community. Of course, we know the adverse effect of some of the social vices that has actually done for us in the country. So there is need for young people to be part of this conversation. There is need for us to be in the middle of this conversation. There is need for intentionality in part of the government to make sure that what is actually driving some of these young people from the rural community to the urban community, can we get it resolved? Can we look for maybe different means to actually make sure that a lot of things are actually put in place when it comes to enabling environment for some of these young people to actually thrive? The technology we're actually looking for in the city, can we start thinking of how to come up with technology that would play a very direct role, not technology that they'll say that, oh, this is what we want you to do. Technology should meet rural people, young people at the point of their need, not technology that would be forced on them, and some of those things actually would not be sustainable. So it's the risks are actually there. Young people are at the heart of it. Young people and vulnerable people, talking about women and people with disabilities, they are at the center of some of these challenges. And it may interest you to also know that even they themselves don't really understand the full concept of what is really happening. but then the repercussion or the effects will be felt on everybody, especially people living in the city. So there is need for subnational awareness or subconsciousness to make sure that a lot of these things happening, especially at subnational level, are pinned. A lot of dialogue needs to go in place. A lot of discussion, needs to be youths or people driven for us to really, move from, of course, this would really help us to move from maybe point A to point 1 to point 1.2 before moving to try to solve the macroeconomics around some of these issues.
Food is culture. That was very, very striking. And thank you for highlighting those risks. And I'm glad you mentioned government playing a role to ensure that we solve some of these problems at the rural stage, not coming to the city or urban center, but the effect would definitely reach every one of us. However, you and I know that policymakers often face a trade-off between emergency intervention and long-term reforms. In our context today as a country, what immediate actions are unavoidable today, and what medium-term reforms must follow to prevent a cycle of recurring food crisis?
Well, I think for me, for immediate response, which should really focus on stabilization. This is what we actually need at the moment. And when I mean stabilization, we are talking about strategic release and better management of our food reserves. We don't want to go into the state of the food reserves are currently in Nigeria. But then I strongly believe that our government needs to actually do more in terms of making sure that our food reserves are actually active year in, year out, 24 hours, 12 months, and across the year. This would really help solve immediate response in terms of stabilization. Then another one is temporary support for input and logistics. It's actually very important for us to identify strategic temporary supports, especially for inputs supports for the rural communities, for communities that are termed their food basket of the nation, for them to actually, because we can say that some of the insecurities are really going down, but then how do we make sure that people that has already been displaced, their works, like their livelihood, even their household, everything is gone. So how do we make sure that we're actually bringing them back to enjoy the normal things they enjoy, and to also benefit from what other states that are not insecurity induced are facing. Then talking about the medium term response, which must address structural weakness. We are now talking about strategic storage and code value chain infrastructure, which will really help to reduce post-harvest losses. We cannot do without incentivizing private sector players. We need to look for something, or the government needs to look for something to draw their attention to start investing in infrastructure. There is no way we can actually do without it, and private sector is like the go-to people to actually make sure that this medium-term response is actually very, very is working. So without private sector, of course, government can actually do a bit, but then there's need for them to find a way to attract some of these people to start making sure that they are investing in infrastructure, especially in the rural communities. There's also need to strengthen market information system and price transparency. A lot of bottlenecks around market infrastructure. Talking about the market infrastructure, some of these things, when we talk about infrastructure, it's actually very broad. We are talking about access to even the roads that leads from the farm to the market. We are talking about how the leadership of the market are actually being structured to eliminate people that are not able to allow some of these farmers to benefit from their sweats. So it is very important for us to make sure that there is transparency, especially when it comes to price control. Of course, governments can actually do a lot when it comes to price control, but all of these things we're talking about government. all of some of these things must happen at the subnational level, and that was why I said that, especially at subnational level. So when I talk about subnational level, we're talking about the state government, local governments. They must own, some of these leadership to make sure that a lot of things are actually in place for the medium-term response.
Thank you very much. Let's switch our attention to young people, and in this sense, young people as economic actors, because oftentimes when youths are discussed, they are discussed as beneficiaries of food system reforms, but increasingly they are becoming economic actors within the food system itself. How can youth-led agribusiness, logistics, and food tech innovations realistically strengthen food systems resilience, and what constraints must be removed for them to be able to scale?
Well, for me, I would say that young people are already, strategically positioning themselves, as in terms of building resilience, because for young people, we are actually very strong, we are agile, we are willing to interact or collaborate with leaders and elders. And when it comes to these issues that we're actually discussing, it may interest you to know that young people are already playing their parts or their role in terms of, especially when it comes to storage and post-harvest value chain infrastructure. We have companies like Eco22 providing cold storage for different market communities in Lagos and other part of the country. We have Bunkasa that as this so before, when you are moving, for example, tomato from maybe the north to Lagos, we are used to some of these raffia baskets, and before it gets to Lagos, maybe half of it as a sport already. So Bunkasa is coming up with crate systems whereby these crates are available. They are the ones that are now replacing some of these raffia baskets, and they are able to move produce fresh from one point to the other. We also have companies like Pharmatrix in Kaduna, aggregating and making sure that they are using technology to really make sure that farmers are actually getting the right people, the right markets, the right access they need to help improve their livelihood. So young people, for talking about helping young people to actually move from one point to the other, we've actually started already. So what we need is a very strong support system so young people are not looking for some of these benefits, because like you rightly said, a lot of young people are not being carried along, especially when some of these interventions are being developed or designed for young people. How are you able to design something for young people without involving or including young people as part of the process? There would not be sustainability. So that is why we are saying that we have a lot of them. Some of them, the challenge they have is that they don't have, that access to maybe their state government. They don't have access to, showcasing where they would really get, more investment to help them scale. They don't have access to, things like maybe accounting system, maybe it's as simple things as registration. Now we have the tax reform there that is really going to choke a lot of young people. So this is where government can actually come in to make sure that some of these reforms are actually young people, youth centered. It's really beyond funding. It's really beyond, take this to scale. Yeah, so there are some doors that young people are not able to access. Can you organize, different dialogues, different intergenerational, dialogues that would really help young people to understand that yes, beyond the business, there is macro economics that they need to also understand and infuse to help them to, progress, to help them to also help other young people. Because when we talk about young people, we are talking about 60% of the population. So it's massive. So there's need for us to make sure that as we are training or building the capacity of some of these young people, they are also giving it back to other young people that are not able to benefit. And with this, it's going to really spread and help to improve our livelihood of young people.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that strengthening food systems requires a coordinated action.
Absolutely.
Across governments, the civil society, the private sector, young people themselves, adults, and the like.
Absolutely.
Where have we seen gaps in coordination or accountability in Nigeria? And what would a more functional partnership model look like in practice?
Well, when it comes to coordination, it's actually also very broad, and coordination is not a one man show. It's not a one man thing. It has to do with collective efforts. It has to do with different for as I go. I said that we need to understand that the food systems approach is really the way to go, especially when it comes, because the major challenge around all of this is the system. The system itself, it's faulty. So it is beyond immediate looking for organizing subcommittee to review some reports and also find some immediate solution. It is really beyond that. It is really making sure that we are addressing the root cause of some of these things. And when it comes to that, everybody has their role to play. For government, of course, it is now beyond saying that we are creating enabling environments. We want to show, we want to see some of those things. We want to see some of the evidences to show that some of these things are actually being created, because everything has to do with the intentionality of government to really want to help address some of these challenges. Like I said the other time, our government really needs to make sure that they are making sure that some of these infrastructure investments, they need to open up the way for private sector actors to actually come in. They need to make sure that some of the things they're actually doing, there's a lot of transparency and accountability. How are we tracking some of these things? Who is in charge of enforcing some of the laws or some of the reforms? Who is in charge of making sure that there are some as we are now in Nigeria, according to the macroeconomics outlook by NESG, where so now agricultural sector is contributing 2.2% to the GDP, and by the end of 2026, we are looking at increasing that to 6%. How are we going to make that work? It has to do with making sure that people even understand how they actually need to, contribute some of these things, contribute to some of these things to actually help us move from one point to the other. There is need for intentionality at the side of the private sector too, because of course, it's really beyond. It should really go beyond the business. It should really be a business and also impact. And there is need for there's a way the private sector also do their thing and want to say that, oh yes, we are the one with close access to some of these government entity. We are the only one that want to do some of those things. So private sector coalition also needs to also be intentional, and they need to make sure that anything they're actually doing, they are putting the nation, the country first. And when it comes to the role of civil society organizations and youth-led movements, what we just need is we need a very a strategic framework to make sure that if the government said, for example, the vice president Kashim Shettima at Davos last month, announced the launch of back to farm initiative. How are we making sure that it's all of those things are beyond mentioning some of them? Who are the people or who are the ministry in charge? How does it move from the office of the vice president, in terms of coordination, to the Ministry of Agriculture, down to the states, down to the local government, and how because the essence or the objective of the initiative is to make sure that states that has been tagged food baskets of Nigeria, which are currently being affected by insecurity challenges, and now that initiative is for them to now start producing or coming up with different inputs and also infrastructural things that would really help them come back and continue living their lives. And also with that, it's going to really help to improve production. But then, how intentional are day, especially in terms of making sure that the right people that are supposed to man, some of these things are doing that. And for us as young people, we are keen to making sure that there is accountability, there is this intergenerational partnership, because we are willing to work with everybody. But then a lot of things are changing, because they used to see if you are not 35, you are still a young person. You don't need to understand some of these things. Whereas we have now seen a situation whereby some of the policies that have been developed by our professors, maybe in the past 20 to 15 years, they are the ones that are also being invited to review the same policy. So what are we talking about? Is it that we don't have young people that are strategically, positioned, or the ones that their capacity are being built to make sure that they are taking over the baton from some of these, professors? And we're also willing to learn from them. So there is need for intentionality. There is need to make sure that there's transparency in all of these things that are happening, and there is need to make sure that the system, because now I've not really mentioned different individual or something. The system needs to be to be brushed up. Once we are able to do that, a lot of things would happen and will flow naturally in the country.
You noted that the system is faulty and we should put on a food systems approach. Could you delve deeper into what this food system approach truly means? Because in Nigeria, we often focus on increasing food production, yet the price volatility would still persist.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you shed more light on this food system approach, on how it can help Nigeria as a country improve both the production, the distribution and storage to reduce the price volatility?
All right. Thank you. So, the food systems, the name, or the thinking around food systems came post-COVID, when the UN Secretary General called for a food systems dialogue across the globe. And the essence of the objective of the different dialogue is for different nations to actually see how they can actually, help cushion the effect of, COVID, especially in terms of hunger and malnutrition that was really very high at that point in time. And Nigeria keyed into, that. And they were able to nominate a national convener, just like other countries were able to do. But one good thing about the food systems dialogue was that it was not a nation, it was not a national something alone. There were rooms for independent dialogues. There were rooms for country specific or country-led dialogues. So with that, there are feedbacks from the country, from the nation as one, and there are also feedback from non-state actors like civil society organizations, academics, and all. So the food systems approach is an holistic approach whereby we are looking at everything together. We are not segregating production, from processing. We are not saying that, let's focus on we are connecting the dots and making sure that the way we are putting a lot of efforts in production, there's need to put effort in processing. There's need to put efforts in transportation. There's need to put efforts in the policy that drives some of these things. There's need to put efforts in the environmental, factors that are behind some of these things. So all of these things, with that, for the food systems dialogue, we were able to, I think we hosted about 40 dialogues, and it was consolidated together in 2021. And that was what the president, the late President Muhammadu Buhari, took to the UN General Assembly and presented as Nigeria's, food systems, national food systems pathway. And since that time, so when they were leaving the summit in 2021, they said that, there will be a stock take every 2 years to, take stock of what has been happening or what has happened from the point of the summits then to the next 2 years. So the first stock take moment, the vice president, Kashim Shettima, led the Nigerian delegation, which I was, fortunate to be part of as the youth lead on the food systems engagement in Nigeria, to Rome in Italy, and we're able to present some of the things that are happening, especially focusing on, different angles, not the government-driven activities alone. We have the donor-led activities, we have the private sector activities, we have the youth, led activities, and all of these are presented. Now, as we speak, we have a very robust food systems implementation strategy, which is like a Bible that is really guiding us on how we're actually able to, identify and also infuse and do some sort of mindset change for people to understand that when we talk about food systems, it is really beyond agriculture. And in Nigeria, now what we've been doing since then is that we've been able, because when it comes to food systems, now we are not talking about agriculture alone. It has to do with I think 14 to 15 MDAs, and we're able to bring all of them together, both at the national level and also at the state level. Now there is now that that subconscious effort for people to understand that when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to environment issues, when it comes to transportation, when it comes to processing, when it comes to value addition, when it comes to trade, everything is embedded into the food systems. And the earlier we start understanding and start making more awareness for people to understand that is really beyond production, it is really beyond processing, it is really beyond a lot of things. So now people are now understand that, oh, okay, food systems, its approach is actually the way to go. With that, different MDAs are able to work together. They're able to collaborate using the interministerial approach. They're able to see that, oh, some of the indicators we are seeing here in our ministry or MDA is something that we can actually share with other MDAs to work together, to transform our food systems. And the second stock take moment took place last year, and the vice president again led us to Addis Ababa for the second food systems stock take moments. And now, post stock take moment, we are really focusing on how subnationals we really understand that, oh, they have a very critical role to play, because all of these things is just maybe few that are happening in Abuja, because also we've also seen Abuja as the federal capital territory, but then it will shock you that we have a lot of rural communities in Abuja, in FCT, that also need some of this intervention. And that is why we make sure that the FCT are also being carried along. So now subnationals need to understand that the food systems approach is making sure that, oh, our collective responsibility, working together, not saying that, oh, agriculture. Now we are looking at food systems in terms of agriculture. We are looking at it in terms of health. We are looking at it in terms of nutrition. We are looking at it in terms of, the climate change effect. We are looking at it in terms of post-harvest, loss, post-harvest management, and all of that. So that is like the holistic approach.
So it's an all-encompassing, it's an all-encompassing framework.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad you mentioned the issue of dialogue, because I never knew that it was a dialogue that resulted into this framework we are speaking about today. And one of NESG's strategic role is to serve as dialogue partners on issues. What lessons can Nigeria draw? Having been at these dialogues, there are lessons we can learn from the word and adapt it to our local context. What lessons can Nigeria draw from, global best practices in managing food price shock?
Well, we need to, first of all, continue or start investing, consistently in storage. We cannot do without, storage. You cannot do without infrastructure, because yes, a lot of, private sector actors, have gone ahead to, build different, storage facilities, different structure and all of that. But then it is beyond that. We need government to actually be intentional in making sure, because these are what's are like case studies outside the country. All of us have seen it. Now it is time for us to bring it back. The idea of, oh, some of these jobs are informal, some of these jobs are linear jobs. We need to start thinking beyond some of those things, because the cocoa we produce here in Nigeria is what is being exported out of the country. And the produce, one of the byproducts is the chocolate we enjoy eating in Nigeria. And when you go to the factories that some of these things are actually being produced, they have a very huge amount of manpower, from washing, from breaking, from cleaning, and some of those things. For it to get some of the things we now import back. So we need to be intentional about making sure that we are thinking we need to start thinking as an export driven country. We need to start making sure that we have infrastructural facilities, especially now. Nigeria is adopting different processing zones. Can we be intentional about making sure that arrangement works, that initiative works, so that some of these produce, as they move from the farm, and some of the farmers are scared that, after producing some of these things, where do I sell some of these things? But then once we have, different agro-processing zones, which is currently being led, by IFAD and some other partners, and once the subnationals are able to, strengthen that process, it means that some of those things, farmers can easily have an arrangement with the processing zone and making sure that some of these things, some of the produce gets to where they actually needs it. So with that, we are producing some of the harvested produce, and we are adding value to it ourselves. And we are now thinking, can we start exporting some of them instead of importing? So it may interest you to know that a lot of things are actually being imported. The Russia-Ukraine war opened our eyes to the politics around wheat production, and now the government is thinking of alternatives, some sort of percentage of cassava which we have in abundance to mix together to to cushion the effect of because we cannot do without infrastructure. Another one is the use of data and early warning system to anticipate shocks. Now we have early warning systems. For example, NIMET churn out seasonal climate prediction every year, and it's now some of those things are now actually very, very accurate. So is it possible for us to invest in data in data and early warning systems that would really help us to anticipate some of these shocks? There's like I said, we cannot oversize the importance of public-private partnership in food logistics and processing. I think that is what we need to also start looking at, because we need to start adding value to some of those things. Even some of those things that even tend to go to waste. An MD under the Ministry of Agriculture, Nigerian Store Product Research Institute, they are currently deploying parabolic solar dryers across the country. What that helps to do is that it really helps to reduce the effect of post-harvest loss. We also need to bring back all of our silos, all of our food reserves. We need to start using them if it is to if it is still the PPP arrangement, but then we need to be intentional about the coordination of how some of these things work, so that we're able to monitor and enforce, so that some of these things that are being produced are not taken out of the country through back doors. And also our border controls too. There's need for us to be very, very intentional about making sure that some of these reforms are really standing, because it's really deep when it comes to that. So there are a lot of things that are happening closed doors. There are a lot of things happening behind the scene. What we just need to do is to make sure that citizens are aware of all of these things and you see them taking action in their various communities. And with that, a lot of things will change. Lastly, there's need for us to treat food security as a national economic priority, not a seasonal issue. With that, a lot of things will change in the country.
Your laugh was quite instructive. That's all I would say. One last question for you before we go. Thank you for sharing those global best practices. We have a lot of viewers watching us. If you were speaking or advising Nigeria's economic managers today, what one reform in the food system would you prioritize that could most quickly reduce vulnerability for young people, especially, and low-income households?
Well, the one I would really, emphasize on is the issue around post-harvest loss. We cannot do without, start thinking about how we can actually start adding value to some of these things that actually goes to waste easily. And it's quite simple. It's simple if government are actually willing to do the right thing. What we just need to do is that we have a lot of, pockets of some of these things already happening. We have a lot of young people, already coming up with different, solutions, especially around post-harvest handling. We have a lot of young people investing their time, energy, and resources in getting some of these, cold storage, some of these other, facilities that would really help to reduce post-harvest loss. There's need for us to be intentional about making sure that a lot of produce coming out of our farms are not going to waste, because if we're able to reduce post-harvest loss, it means that instead of 40%, imagine that those 40% are being processed. Imagine that there is a facility that would really help to keep some of those things fresh. Imagine the kind of opportunity it would open up for young people, especially in the rural communities. It would really go a long way. So there is need for us to be intentional about infrastructural investments, for post-harvest reduction, and a lot of other things would really, help. It would really go down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aziz, for your insights into this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching this show, one key point that has been highlighted over and over again is the point that intentionality will become Nigeria's survival strategy to beating the food price shock. Till we come away next time, keep serving in the national interest. Thank you very much.